Like Marx, Weber also believed that social classes were derived from the interaction of social actors. While Marx called this the relationship to the means of production, Weber refers to this as market capacities. The main difference between Marx and Weber is that while Marx made mode of production and the exploitation of one class by another a central focus of his work, Weber concentrated on what he called the market situation because he felt it was the market that directly shapes each individual's life chances. So Weber believed that class membership was not defined by the ownership of the means of production or lack of the ownership of means of production, as Marx did. Instead, he talked about market-determined life chances. He also talked about the rationality of irrationality, pointing to the way in which capitalist society was organized and the iron cage of bureaucracy. He thought that there was no way out. He didn't particularly like capitalism. In fact, it quite depressed him. But he also really thought that capitalism was the only thing that we had going for us. And he had no interest, as did Marx, about bringing about change. His analysis certainly identified a property market and a market for services, but he didn't focus on the conflict between classes. For Weber, an individual's class situation was based on two organizing criteria: the type of market situation, property market, and market for services, and the possibility of mobility between class situations that an individual faced. Each market situation for Weber had a corresponding class, property classes and acquisition classes, and classes were further divided on the basis of privilege. If you take a look at the next slide, you can see Weber's structure of class categories. He talked about property classes, where you've got positively privileged property classes, middle property classes, and negatively privileged property classes. Negatively privileged meaning those without property. They were debtors, outcasts, working poor, slaves. He also identified acquisition classes, the positively privileged, those who controlled management of productive enterprises or were able to influence economic policy in their favor. He looked at middle commercial classes, self-employed people like farmers and artisans, and finally he looked at the negatively privileged acquisition classes, the skilled, the semi-skilled, or the unskilled laborers, those people who, like Marx's idea of workers, had to sell their labor in order to be able to survive.